Hello and welcome to the Story Engine podcast. My name is Kyle Gray, and today we're going to be talking about 4 mental roadblocks that you need to consider that are hurting your conversions when speaking. And you probably don't know that many of these exist yet. So, throughout the episode, I'm going to break down each of these 4 roadblocks and what you should be doing instead. And you should notice an immediate boost in your conversions and in your performance when you speak. So let's move on to the first one, which is called the courtroom truth. This idea of courtroom truth can be a bit counterintuitive at first, because it might be the only way that we really consider ever looking at the truth before. But in fact, there are many ways to look at the truth. The courtroom truth is the most intuitive. It's often the only kind of truth we use. It focuses exclusively on what happened. And this kind of truth is what you would tell if you were called to be testified to court. Why it's called courtroom truth. This is as detailed as possible, and every single detail has equal importance in the narrative and the thread. Next, it's chronological. It's always told from beginning to end and each point along the way, and it emphasizes the facts of what happened inside of the story. Now, while this kind of truth is essential for many areas of communication, it holds us back when it's the only kind of truth we focus on and leads to problems on the stage. First, you'll have diluted ideas. When we're only thinking in courtroom truth, every idea we emphasize gets equal emphasis. Every step in the journey, every tool in your tool belt, and the sheer amount of ideas that you convey makes it difficult for your listener to attach to or relate to any one of them. The second problem is dissolving time. All of these details that we're talking about here take time to explain. And in fact, they take more time than most speakers consider and or prepared for. Meaning if they get 30 minutes to speak, they're going to take 35 minutes before they even get to their call to action. And that's a problem. Next, distracted listeners. Because your listeners are going to have a hard time relating to your content, they're going to be constantly distracted when you speak. And the density of your ideas will raise more confusion and objections and cause them to disengage. And overall, this puts a lot of pressure on the speaker. There's so much information to remember, to convey clearly and effectively, and it's fighting uphill all of the time with their audience, which makes this whole process rather unpleasant. So what do we do instead? How do we move away from courtroom truth without lying, without being manipulative? There are ways that we can do this that are authentic, that are powerful, and that are aligned with your vision as a visionary. And what I would recommend is using your personal truth. The personal truth that you have recognizes and emphasizes a particular value or perspective instead of a fact or sequence of events. It's meant to show who you are and why you care, rather than perfectly recount a detail. And so, as opposed to courtroom truth, personal truth is key detail focused. Instead of trying to focus every single detail, you want to emphasize the ones that are core to your vision, to your purpose of telling the story. It's emotional and it's visionary instead of chronological, which in many cases, if somebody had 2 or 3 painful moments that led to an inspiration to make them who they are, they might tell one of those moments as if it was the main inspiration, which may not be entirely true looking back to what happened, but it makes it simple and easier for the audience to understand what's important, which is your vision, which is what you want to do, which is why you care, where you want to go. And most importantly, the personal truth is service-oriented. Courtroom truth is all about what happened to you, what you can recount, what you can think of. And service-oriented is, what does my audience need? What are they looking for? What are their problems? How can I help them? Let's move on to our second roadblock, prescriptive versus descriptive language. Now, if there's one shift in your speaking that's going to make the biggest difference, it's going to be this one. Now, most experts and leaders are being too prescriptive in their content and in their talks. Being prescriptive means you focus your stories on your teachings, on the technical details of how to get the results you promise. You talk about all of the things that they are going to do with the listeners to get them a result. Here are some examples of prescriptive language in health, marketing, and money. Something like, you need to go on a keto diet and cut out gluten and start running right away to lose weight. If you want to be visible on social media, you need to make a social post every single day. You need to start tracking every dollar you spend and categorizing it. Now, these all sound reasonable and are true. So what else are we here for if we're not meant to solve our listeners' problems? We are experts after all, and we've spent years mastering our craft. And now all of that seems to be working against us. Well, it's true. You're doing more damage than good when you speak like this. Speaking prescriptively gets you tuned out by your audience. If they don't believe it's possible for them, they're not going to listen to what we have to teach because we're not meeting them where their need to be met. They're going to be overwhelmed. It's difficult to know how much teaching is too much teaching when you're being prescriptive. And too much information, even if it's good, will leave your listeners feeling discouraged. And of course, empowerment. That's right, I said empowerment. Often prescriptive information is empowering instead of empowering because they get enough to feel like they can do it on their own. And then they go off and try and do it poorly without your guidance. They do it wrong, and they add this to another long list of the things that don't work for them. So what do we do instead? When your listeners come to you in the moment that a signature talk, a podcast, or something might influence their choice, they come to you because they want to believe something new is possible for them. They want the roadblocks removed between them and their goal, and they've been searching for somebody that really understands them and what to do about it. They want a new perspective to help them see the situation differently and find the opportunities within it. At the stage of the relationship where someone's waiting to hear you speak on stage, they want to feel understood by you, not fire hosed with all of your knowledge until they understand you. Now, great speakers will serve their listeners by being descriptive of the results that they get and what's possible after, rather than entirely focusing on the process itself. They focus on addressing the limiting beliefs that the listeners have and showing them what's possible for them on the other side of the process. So going back to our past examples with the keto diet, instead of throwing all of your food out of the pantry, it could be something like you can lose weight, gain energy, and still enjoy bacon in the mornings without having to feel deprived or spend hours in the gym. For social media, instead of post every day, when you use our social system, you'll wake up in the morning with high quality leads in your DMs. You'll have clients on demand whenever you need, and you'll have a simple process to know what to post every morning. Finally, with finance, goes from tracking your numbers every day to when you know your money numbers, you will have the power to say yes to the life you love and the clarity to say no to everything else. Each of these elements required the prescriptive language to get there. Whatever we said in the prescriptive language was part of what was needed to get these results. But at this point in the relationship, the audience wants to believe in the possibility more than know how to do it. So look through your content, your scripts, your slides, and videos to transform your perspective and your language to descriptive language. And you're going to start noticing better conversions in addition to applause when you speak, better leads and clients, and they'll start raising their hands and reaching out, and you will have more fun speaking and being yourself instead of trying to prove yourself. The third mental roadblock is single decision versus progression. Now, being a single decision oriented in terms of a talk means your whole talk is oriented around a single idea, a single decision. Usually, this is purchasing something from you. This results in a couple of different problems. Oftentimes, it's a very dense offer with tons of extras, bonuses, and things crammed in to get value, to get conversions. Next up is manufactured urgency. A lot of the times this is you have to act in the first 48 hours or the price is going to go up or the first 10 buyers get this. And audiences are really getting sophisticated enough to realize that's not always the case, or to at least not be particularly motivated when they sense manufactured urgency. And finally, cringy testimonials. When we see testimonials stacked on right after the offer is made, it's our role in this process, our brains, to be skeptical and to push them away, to not believe them. So being single decision oriented, it puts a lot of pressure on your offer. It densifies your offer. And a lot of the times we forget how to strategize and prepare the 40 or so minutes of our opening story and our talk and our teaching to support this offer as much as possible. When we think it's just a single decision, there's just this pressure that it all orchestrates and come together perfectly. But instead, if you think of your talk as a progression, a series of simple, delightful decisions that they can make before they work with you, it's going to take a lot of pressure off you as a speaker and will allow you a deeper way to look at what you're speaking on, how you're speaking on, and how you're moving somebody through a journey to working with you. Now, I like to see a talk as 3 separate questions to answer. The first is, why should I listen to this? We need a story that would communicate to them why you care, why you understand, and how you have something that's better than they've heard of before, and they should stick around. The second is, could this work for me? Not, are you smart enough or are qualified enough of a speaker to help me, but how can we actually get our listeners believing that what you have to share could work for them, even if they've been through 12 other people that hasn't worked before? And finally, the third one, should I act now? Not just should I act or should I act with you, but should I act with you now? Are you the person? Am I ready to trust me and you to make a change and make this decision? If you want to learn more about these 3 decisions, I have an episode called The Anatomy of a High Converting Talk that I highly recommend you go check out, where I break down this process of what to do and how to do about it in detail. But that's not quite the purpose of this talk today. But breaking the talk down in this way brings a great deal of clarity to the speaker in helping them decide what to share and why. It's strategic. Having smaller and clearly defined choices allows us to focus on what's important for each phase of the talk. It simplifies what's necessary, taking pressure off the speaker, leading them to be calmer, more confident, and have more fun. It's self-reinforcing. Each single individual decision helps the next be more effective and move farther. We are anticipating making an offer with these steps without putting all of the pressure on the offer, which changes how we teach, which changes what kind of stories we can tell, and allows us to meet the audience where they need to be met instead of trying to bring them to where we are. The final and fourth roadblock is being self-oriented versus customer-oriented. Now, this is something that underlies all three of the other roadblocks. This is basically the underpinning of what's happening underneath all of these and will make a massive difference for you as a speaker and as a content creator if you can understand this shift. The biggest problem many coaches, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders are facing these days is being self-oriented. This means you focus on and emphasize what's important to you and your communication. You use the language that's normal to you, and you share the ideas that you think are the most exciting and relevant to what you want to do. You focus your talk on what you want to happen as the speaker. Once again, these sound like pretty reasonable things to do, but you're missing out on the most important ingredient of speaking, of storytelling, of communication, of marketing, of sales, of being in business at all, which is the listener. Without an understanding of the listener to connect with, there's no story, there's no teaching, there's no offer, slides, or any kind of parlor trick that's going to reach your listener. And this is where true story mastery really comes in. It's not in being able to tell about a daring adventure or victory or sharing a great pain, because good storytelling focuses you on your listener. It may share your moments, but it uses the customer's language and an understanding of where they are to show that you understand them and to help them move forward. Great teaching doesn't just show how brilliant of a person you are, it anticipates your audience's limiting beliefs and helps them open up to new perspectives. And most importantly, when we start to focus on our clients instead of ourselves, it creates the cure for one of the most perennial and pernicious problems that we face as entrepreneurs, which is imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is something that is present at every level of success and is something that can happen to anyone and is quite common. So that's the bad news. No matter how successful you get, no matter how big you grow, no matter where you find yourself in line, you're probably going to find yourself with some degree of imposter syndrome. But the good news is the cure is always the same. If you're feeling imposter syndrome, you're being self-oriented, which means you're thinking about yourself, your shortcomings. You want to think about how to convince your audience to do something. When you can shift to being customer oriented, to being service oriented, to fighting for the people that need you. And remember that right now, as you're struggling with your own inner things, that there are people that really do need you, that are waiting for you, that are hoping for someone just like you to present the answer. And every moment that we delay struggling with ourselves means that there are people out there that could use our help that are being unserved. And when we can start to think in this way, a greater sense of purpose starts to infuse and grow within us. And the obstacles and our roadblocks and our shortcomings that once seemed to hold us back don't seem so important anymore. And so there you have it. These are the 4 mental roadblocks that are holding back your ability to be persuasive, to convert when speaking. I hope this was useful today. And if it has been for you, please share this with one other person that could use this episode. Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube or follow wherever you download your podcasts. And we will see you on the next Story Engine podcast.